Hi, Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American. At this week and last week, I'm still doing my virtual tour of all the Irish distilleries that I wanted to visit, and also Irish bottlers, let's call that today. Who do I have the privilege of talking with now?
Hi, I'm Patrick Shelley. I'm founder of Origin Spirits.
Very, very good. So Chris already wrote here, good evening all together, Patrick and Jason. And unfortunately, Kevin wrote in German and says, oh, I've already seen an interview with him. He's very, very nice and interesting, and his Irish vodka is also good to hear. Kevin wrote in German and says, oh, I've already seen an interview with him. He's very, very nice and interesting. All right, Patrick. Now, the problem is in the background, I can hear myself. Could you turn off your YouTube in the background or Facebook? Because it's getting a little bit of an echo, if at all possible. Background, I can hear myself. Could you turn off your YouTube in the background or Facebook? Because it's getting a little bit of an echo, if at all possible.
Just one second.
I can hear myself. So we're going to work this out. Turn off your YouTube in the background. All right. Tina also says hello. That is very, very good. All right, it's great to see all of you coming in here. We're working out the original technical difficulties at the moment, and we'll have this hopefully all set up in a second. All right, it's great to see all of you coming in here. I still hear myself in the background when I turn on the microphone by Patrick, unfortunately. All right, very, very good. So what I'm going to do in the moment while we're working on this is to actually show something here, and that is the place where you can buy the whiskey, which is very, very interesting. One place that's fairly new in Ireland is Irish Malts, fine Irish whiskeys and spirits. They send basically all over the world, and we have the Currach single malt where I bought it from, actually, and also we have the cask strength Founders cask, which is very, very interesting. One of the 220 limited bottles here. All right, so going back now to Patrick, let's see if this works out just fine. All right, so Patrick, say something.
Hi, can you hear me?
Excellent, excellent. All right, good, good. A couple people have joined the group as well. Thomas is here. He says, hello, Patrick. Hello, Jason. With a Whiskey Throttle from Canada's here, from Alberta. Very, very good to see you there. Tobias, Torsten. Tina says, I read a lot about the whiskey, so I'm very interested. Tobias says, sounds interesting. Kevin is here. Hi, Jason. And how do you say that? My Gaelic is non-existent.
Sorry, I can't see the screen, Jason, for the moment.
Okay, Dia Duet, Patrick, I think is what he said.
Dia Duet.
Dia Duet. Thank you, thank you. All right, Volker is also here, and also Susanna. So, Susanna is there from West Cork. Also, Martin is there. He says, hola. Very, very good. So, Patrick, tell me, who are you and what is your role in this, this company?
Okay, first of all, can you see me, Jason?
Yes.
Okay,
and
good.
They can see you as well.
My name is, as I said, my name is, sorry.
And
Go
they
ahead.
can see you as well.
Okay, very good. So Patrick Shelley, originally from Turin in Ireland. I started Origin Spirit 2015. Prior to that, I'd spent probably 20 years in the international luxury drinks business, and 15 years of that was with Moët Hennessy, which is part of the LVMH group. I started looking at Eastern Europe for Hennessy cognac, and then looked after the champagne portfolio, Moët Chandon, Dom Perignon in Asia. I then came back to run one of the smaller champagne houses, the international desk for that. And then finally I was sent to Russia to open a spree for Moët Hennessy. And I think that's where really my let's say my entrepreneurial story started, Jason, because one thing there's a few tipples I like in my life. One is whiskey, obviously, but I also like you know brown spirits with a lot of flavors, so cognac, Armagnac, some rums, etc. Mm-hmm. When I was in Russia, I was really intrigued by the fact that everybody was drinking vodka, and I couldn't understand drinking vodka, because everything I love about whiskey, it's that depth, complexity, that character I felt was missing from. I set out to try and create vodka that I could drink, and in ways inspired by my passion for whiskey. So specifically to create a single malt vodka, using Irish ingredients and using our of distilled in Ireland. So a lot of people thought I was completely nuts as to why I was so much time working on a vodka. It actually took us 3 years to create. Currach single malt is the name. We have actually produced a whiskey at the same time. So that's where definitely the whole journey started. We've since then create a peat cask single malt vodka, a single malt gin called Currach, and obviously the reason we're here today is our single malt whiskey.
All right, I'm going to share a little bit of picture here of your various products, if I may. I just found them on Facebook here. So that would be, I guess, this one. All right, so we have your Currach, we have your Currach, we have your Currach, and we have your Ornabrak. Was that correctly said, your gin?
Ornabrak, yes, it's a single malt gin. The name, interesting, Jason, comes from the Gaelic word Ornabrak, which means barley. Gin, single malt gin, a single malt.
All right, very good. So your connection, I'm so sorry, is not the best at the moment with your Wi-Fi. We did a little bit of a check beforehand, and it was actually just fine. You seem to be better now, so continue talking, please.
So maybe I'll tell you a little bit about our whiskey. So the name is, it's a Currach single malt whiskey. Bottle here. Probably seen it. So what's unusual about Currach is that it's the first whiskey in the world finished in star casks. The whiskey itself is a single malt. It's non-chill filtered, and it's bottled at 46% alcohol. The reason behind this whole concept is we wanted to create something unique and a little bit of more innovation into the Irish business. I think one of the things that has inspired me personally in all the products we make is the whole concept of the Irish terroir, using the ingredients from the land. And I suppose to back everything we do is malted barley. We get our Irish malt barley from the southeast of from the west East Korea, and it is then it's actually malted in the malting company of Ireland in Cork, and then it is transported to our partner West Distillers in Cork, where it's old mashed, fermented, and 4 times copper pot distilled. So the barley was the whole incident was really much the Irish war, and we were looking at other areas of the Irish actually expand this. We're obviously peat from the wet bogs for our cask malt vodka. We're trying to think what could do that's a little bit unique and innovative, and within the whiskey space to create something quite interesting. And I suppose people who live in Ireland or know Ireland, it's obviously an island, and I think this whole island mentality has type of, in ways, defined who we are and where we've come from. And he has always played a huge role in Irish history and in the Irish side. So we're looking at seaweed. And seaweed, as you probably know, has been used as a staple source in the world for like thousands of years. And we thought it would be interesting, that whole element of land and sea together. To be honest, I hadn't a clue going initially. We started just experimenting in Paris, and I remember once I was actually smoking wood chips on my barbecue and burning the top of it, putting those chips into a bottle of salt to see what it does. No idea it was going to work. But I thought the initial results were actually quite promising, thought they could be. So then we started looking at scaling that up. We obviously talked to the guys in Westcourt, the whole technical element of doing so. We then approached a company on the Atlantic coast in County Irish Seaweeds, who are probably one of the best producers of sustainable seaweed in Ireland. And we took a number of different
something really
samples.
quick? Could we try, could you go down, please, to that little tiny cog wheel where it says your microphone and your cam? Could we turn maybe off your camera? So I guess I'm going to have to wait 1 second. So, all right, because the connection, many people are complaining that they can't even understand what you're saying here, unfortunately. Due to connection problems, I didn't get where the whiskey comes from, and it says here it's very difficult to hear. Let's try to work on that we maybe just have your audio but not actually hear your video. So if you go down below, you just stop the cam. So you see mute and then stop the cam.
Okay, cool.
All right, so down below you have the word mute, and then you have the word stop the cam, and then you have leave studio. So if you could just stop the cam, that'd be great. And okay. I'll just put up your picture here, and then you can keep on talking. Okay. We'll work on that way. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. So apologies to those of you who haven't heard me. Was just explaining a little bit about how the seaweed has become an inspiration to our whiskey. We sampled a number of different types. Kind of on a micro test, but actually going full production. We took the 4 or 5 different seaweed varieties where we tested how they reacted when they were charred, how they reacted with the wood, and more importantly, what influence that actually gave to the whiskey. So we said our whiskey is a single malt. It's quite a young whiskey, 3 years old. We then take American oak cask, and we smoke and infuse the casks with the seaweed. So our first product is an Atlantic kombu cask. So kombu seaweed. So we do the kombu, really interesting for profile. It's obviously got this umami element from a lot of weed, but it's quite nutty and almost dark chocolatey. So yeah, it's a really interesting product. We then filled. Basically, what we do is we put the seaweed into the casks for in 500 gram lots, and we basically smoked the interior of the cask. We're not trying to char the casks. We just want to get smoke into the wood. It actually takes quite a long time to smoke each cask. It's probably 20 to 25 minutes. And then we basically fill the casks with our single malt whiskey and leave it to finish for 3 months.
All right. I read someplace you actually experimented with 1, 2, 3, and 4 months of aging, but you decided on 3. Could you explain why?
Yes, I think after the first month, nothing much happened. The second month, we were beginning to get some of that seaweed influence in terms of that umami character coming through. The third month, we felt it was just perfect. We did go longer, but we felt that after the third month, Jason, the smoke element coming from the wood was almost expended, and it was picking up more of the woody kind of caramel notes. So we felt that 3 months was the optimal time to actually finish it.
All right, very good. We have a problem with the internet that every once in a while people come and people go. So we have a couple new people who just arrived. Could you once again explain where the whiskey comes from and where you got the idea of actually using seaweed to season the casks with, or is it called season the cask, or do you finish the casks with that seaweed?
Yeah, so the whiskey is distilled in West Cork in Skibbereen. And the idea is to use seaweed to impart, basically we char the seaweed in the cask and allow the smoke to infuse into the wood without using that flame to actually char the cask. So what we do is we put the seaweed in 500 gram lots. We char it. We then seal the cask, so allow that smoke to fill the cask. We then open it, or we then roll the cask, open it, and do it again with 500 grams of seaweed so we do that 5 times. We put about 2.5 kilos of seaweed into each cask. So that's again why it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to char each individual cask.
Very, very good. So now the question is, seaweed, you mentioned before, has been used for many thousands of years also as a source of nutrition or nutrients. Is this something that's very common for that area of Ireland? I'm a little bit ignorant, I must admit.
Yes, Ireland has, I suppose, seaweed is probably the most celebrated historic food stuff that has been consumed in Ireland. It dates back thousands of years. There are even stories of St. Columkill, who founded the Iona, the monastery in Iona, that they used to feed the monks, the people in the monastery, with seaweed. The poor, they used to feed with seaweed. Seaweed has been used for human consumption, but also for animal feeding over the years. So I think probably even though it's very much a stable food source in Ireland, it's really parts of Asia where it has really become central to life. And that's also interesting for us, because particularly with Currach, we're getting a lot of demand from Asian markets, because number one, seaweed is celebrated there, but also they revere single malt. So bringing the two together, it's actually creating an interesting proposition for them.
All right. So Ed from the Rot Gut Review is here, and now Patrick. Tobias asked the question, Patrick, how do you describe the taste? Now, maybe we can try putting on your camera again. Is that a possibility, or what do you think here? Let's go back to you and see how that works here. Wait a second. All right, very good. I think the internet connection could be a little bit better now. Very good, very good. So tell me, how would you describe the taste of this?
Okay, I think you've got the elements you'll find that in a lot of Irish whiskies, you've got that kind of rich, almost sweetness. But I think specific to Currach, on the nose, there's quite aromas of toffee, of raisin. You've definitely got this light, smoky, earthy umami element also. And then, once you taste it, you've got these distinct aromas of Arabic roast coffee, salted caramel. Again, you're getting this kind of dark chocolate, nutty notes. It's somewhere, I think, between. Somebody asked me recently, Patrick, is it like a peated? And I say, no, it's not like a peated, but there is that element, that delicate element of smoke, which has been imparted from the cask. So in terms of the finish, I think it's quite rich. It's quite subtly sweet, but again, it's been balanced by these lovely umami notes. I think that's what works really, really well in Currach, because you've got this natural kind of light sweetness of the single malt spirit, which has been balanced by this sea element or umami.
All right. So Tobias says sounds really tasty, and also has mentioned the connection is much better now. Very, very good. Okay. And Alicia actually says seaweed hummus is very common here. So all right, very good. Now you still can't see me, correct?
I can see you. Yes.
Do you know this bottle?
I do.
All right. Can I say that this is almost the basis for this? West Cork, yes, it's single malt, it's triple distilled, I think. Yes. And so this would be very similar to the original ingredients you had in here, right?
Yes.
And then you do your magic.
Yes.
All right, very, very good. Now, David asks here, are the casks you use for the seaweed char virgin oak casks, or are they also ex-bourbon? Because this was actually first fill ex-bourbon casks, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So obviously the casks that we use for the single malt aging are ex-bourbon casks, but the casks we use for the finishing are virgin American oak.
All right, very, very good. The Rock Gut Review also says, I love that label with the wee round oars. Makes me feel sentimental. So the Currach actually has a meaning, which I don't think you've mentioned yet, have you?
Yes, I mentioned earlier that Ireland is an island nation. The sea has been pivotal, I suppose, to our whole culture and development of as a people and our history. And the Currach actually is probably it's the most emblematic Irish boat, but it's also, interestingly, one of the oldest boats in the world. So it actually dates back to the Neolithic times. Don't ask me when that was, Jason. It was a long time ago.
1,000+ years ago.
Yeah, a couple of thousand years. But it's got a really nice story because I think any island, people explore from that island. They bring knowledge. They bring back other things. And I think the story really started with the Currach in the 5th, 6th century, where most of the trade between Ireland and the UK, the Isle of Man, it was all done by Currach. So much so that period became known as the Currach Age. And you may know that, which I always like, little snippets of history that kind of relate to what we do.
History lessons, I love them. Very good. Yeah. Yay.
And one of the things I love about the Currach is the story that, after the fall of the Roman Empire, the Irish monasteries in ways became very much the center of education and excellence in Europe. So the Irish monks were actually not only teaching religious studies, but also philosophy. They were
sciences as well, actually.
Greek and Roman, and so this was actually so successful. And I think this is really kind of the birth of Irish entrepreneurship, that the Irish monks thought that actually this is actually doing so well. Let's export it. Let's expand. Let's scale up. So they started traveling all over Europe to bring their knowledge to as far as Greece, always traveling into Currach. And what's interesting for us, Jason, is that not only were they exporting knowledge, they were also bringing back innovation. One of the pieces of innovation they brought back was, your listeners might know as the alembic, or what we know today as the pot still. And they apparently discovered the alembic in Greece, and the Greeks had been using it to distill essential oils and perfumes. But with the Irish monks that started playing around with fruits and distilling low alcohol, I wouldn't even say spirits then, but drinks, and as we know where the story has gone since then. There's a funny story. I was in Russia in February, actually my last trip before the lockdown. And where our vodka is actually doing really, really well there. And somebody said to me, Patrick, oh, it's a really nice vodka, but with all due respects, the Russians, made vodka, not the Irish. And I said, well, I'm not disputing that. I will, however, offer that had it not been for the Irish, you wouldn't be distilling.
All right, very good, very good. That's maybe true. So, or maybe the people from the Arabic world may have made their way up to Russia anyways. Who knows? All right. So what I did not know, the Rock Gut Review is in Milwaukee, in the States here, and they say the Irish community, which is very big there, actually has Currach races every summer. Now, the next question that's actually has been asked here is distribution. Now, I know that I bought this from Ireland. I know it's not yet even in Germany yet. So tell me a little bit about your plans for distribution for that. How many bottles did we have of this one? Because the other one was only, I think, what, 220?
The cask strength was 220, yes. So our first batch we produced just short of 600 cases. So it's the equivalent of about 11 casks, 10 or 11 casks.
Yeah.
We've the second batch already, finishing. But to answer your question, but first of all, before I go to the US, we actually have Currach arriving in Germany tomorrow.
Oh, very good.
So anybody who's interested, it should be out in the trade by, I'd say, in the coming weeks. But anybody who's interested, they can contact Alba Import, our partner.
Didi, yeah, very good. Yeah.
So albaimport.de. So for other markets, we've just shipped in Asia. We've just shipped our first consignment to Singapore. We'll be shipping to Japan in the coming weeks. The US, we had planned getting it out midsummer. We're looking at basically the logistics of that at the moment.
Yeah.
But we seem to have a lot of interest from our stateside distributors there. So I think it's just a question of time. And as we all know in this situation, it's we don't really know what's happening tomorrow,
Exactly. Very good.
But, so our plan is to, obviously our first market where we distribute is in Europe. We'll also be in France, hopefully from next month, and some other markets. Asia, as I already mentioned, and hopefully the US by the end of the summer.
All right. So Patrick actually asked, how important is the German market for you? And of course, you can maybe even answer this question in German.
Also der deutsche Markt ist sehr wichtig für uns, vor allem für unsere Gin. So before I lose everybody else, thanks for your question, by the way, Tobias. Germany is a very strong market, particularly for our single malt gin. And we're expecting it to be one of our top markets for Currach.
Look at this. He says, danke. Very, very good. Very, very good. And what would you say is the USP of your product, except for the seaweed? Is there anything else that makes you very, very special, very unique?
I think it's the overall taste experience. It's quite unique in that we didn't, to be honest, know how people would take this. flavor profile, it's got everything hopefully that a single malt whiskey would have, but we've kind of put our own kind of fingerprint on it in terms of seaweed. So for me, all our products are, they might look nice in the bottle, the label might look nice, but I think the real test is the actual taste. And so I'd recommend at least to have a taste and see what you think.
Very good. Connor here writes, congratulations on the launch, Patrick. Very unique taste experience. Connor Hyde. Oh, I know Connor as well. Very, very good here from Hyde Whiskey. Yeah. Excellent, excellent. All right, very, very nice. So what's next? You have your gin, you have your vodka, you have your whiskey. Will you go into rum, or will you have new expressions of whiskey?
We currently have a number of test casks, where we're experimenting. As I mentioned at the beginning, some of your listeners might have missed because of the line. We actually started testing with 3 or 4 other seaweed varieties. It's probably too early to say because we really just want to see how they evolve in cask in the coming months. But the logical thing would be to expand the Currach footprint under different varieties of seaweed.
Mm-hmm. So what different types of seaweed do we have? We have kombu, which you have, and I'm not a seaweed expert. Help us here a little bit of what possibilities, or is it a trade secret still?
I can't tell you what we actually are planning to bring out.
Don't worry.
One of the first, but I would say that probably the most native seaweed in Ireland is a red seaweed called dillisk or dulsa.
Okay, if you say so, I have no idea.
But because the kombu is technically it's called a brown seaweed.
Yeah.
So you've got the red seaweed, which is dulsa, and then we've got a lot of green seaweed. So everything from there's wakame, there's spiritola. So
another type of history lesson for me. We're now in biology lessons, right?
I've only really known about seaweed for the last year, so I'm trying to increase my knowledge.
And I have absolutely a void in my knowledge. I mean, all right, good. So, Patrick, are you planning to come to the Whiskey Live in Dublin in November?
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. All right, very, very nice. Okay. Now, David asks, what's a good food pairing for Currach? I can't imagine eating chocolate with seaweed smoked whiskey.
Good question, David. I think one of our top customers in Ireland is a 2-star Michelin restaurant called I'm Sure.
Okay.
And they've been playing around with it recently. I know they were looking at pairing it with this sounds really strange but delicious, with tuna marinated in beeswax and served with a daishi, so that kind of Japanese kind of umami sauce.
I was thinking a little bit of truffle as well could be actually interesting here.
Yes. Truffle, mushroom, I think all that family, I think could go really well with it. I think again, I'm not a food expert, but just from tasting Currach, I would imagine things like, Peking duck would go really well. That, the crispiness of the skin with that moist, kind of rich, slightly sweet flavor of the meat, I think could go really well. So what else could it? We just launched, literally three weeks ago. So we're still trying to find our feet.
Don't worry. But I think those are a lot of good examples already there. Now, the question Tobias kind of asked indirectly was, do you have plans for your own distillery? Is this just a step in that direction, or do you want to be an independent bottler with unique ideas?
We've been very clear, Tobias, from the very beginning that we're not a distillery, and we've always said we're very proud and happy to work with our partners in West Cork Distillers. We currently don't have any plans to do a distillery. You won't see the word distillery anywhere on our bottle. But who knows in the future? You know, it really depends. And I suppose you need to look at this from a commercial basis. If we believe that there is sufficient scale there in the future, we would certainly look at it. I think we'd be silly not to. But at the moment, I think the most important thing for me is the consistency of quality and supply, which we're getting in abundance from West Cork Distillers. So I think we've no reason to change that at the moment. We're still very much in the growth phase. We're quite a new company with new products, and the focus certainly in the coming years is to build distribution. But the one thing about building distribution is sometimes you can lose sight of where you are and what you've achieved. So what we're trying to do is both expand and deepen at the same time. So in the markets we are, like in Germany, I'm speaking to Karina today. You know, we have a really good close relationship, and we try to give the maximum of amount of support we can to each country. And I think
you might actually come on over to Germany one day if we ever have another whiskey fair.
I've been at a few already in Germany, so I love coming over.
All right, very, very, very good. Okay, that sounds interesting. Now you have a single malt. Will you one day have a blend as well? Because Ireland's famous for the blends.
Possibly. Okay. I think the direction we're looking at going with potential, and again, this is potential other seaweed expressions. I think we could possibly create another certainly 2, 3, 4 expressions. So I think that's going to keep us busy certainly for the next couple of years. And but who knows? You know, there's possibilities. There's a lot of other options. You know, potentially in the pot still category. You know, we've already, as you inferred to at the beginning, Jason, we produced a cask strength limited edition, which I believe is now sold out from our stock. You know, certainly there's some available through our partners and Irish Malts.
Irish Malt still has it in stock. Let me see here. Oh, I can go all the way up to 20. So maybe their computer system's not right, but we'll see here.
Yeah.
All right. So that's very, very interesting. What have we not talked about that you would like to talk about? I always like to ask that question, if I may.
I suppose maybe the whole approach of what we're trying to do. I see. I think over the years, and you know, through our first product, Currach Single Malt Vodka, I think we've crafted a really nice portfolio. By the way, this is Currach Single Malt Vodka. This is our peat cask, so you can see it's slightly darker color.
And is it quarter cask that you're using, maybe?
Excuse me?
Are you using quarter casks for the peated?
They're 200 liters.
All right. Well, a lot of people like to use those little quarter casks from Lefroy. That's why I was asking.
No,
so if we know it's a quarter cask, it's usually Lefroy, but it's good. All right, very good. But it's an Isla peat you're using, right?
The cask, again, they're Virgin American oak casks that we finished them in, but with peat from the West Cork bogs.
Okay, very, very good.
So, so we basically and our gin Orna Brack. So basically, we have 4 products at the moment. I think the interesting thing is you've got that same DNA running through them, and that DNA is single malt. Okay. So before our whiskey arrived, we had 3 single malt spirits, and none were whiskey. That Irish malted barley runs through each one of them.
Therefore, you'll probably not have a blend, but you could have the pot still. Makes sense.
Everything is possible, in the future. And I think I like to kind of think that what we're doing, because Currach single malt vodka was one of the only 2 single malt vodkas in the world when we created it. The same with our gin. And now we've created a seaweed cask, a single malt whiskey, which is the first in the world. So I suppose we like to take this innovative approach and almost look at it in a bit of an avant-garde way, trying to think out of the box, celebrating the best of our ingredients and our tradition of distillation, but also keeping an eye on the future and looking at how we can innovate to the best, without making something gimmicky.
Very, very good. Now, if I look at you, your dress, the picture hanging on the wall behind you, it seems very, very almost conservative, to be honest. And then you come out with these products that are off the wall almost. Are those your ideas, or are you having visions in the night, or how do you get these crazy great ideas here?
Well, the seaweed actually probably came in a dream.
Okay.
But I didn't know how to process it at the time. It kind of hit me later. But I suppose the others, what people ask a lot, as you asked that question, what was the inspiration? And I think it's really the first product which was the toughest, which was Currach, and then the rest kind of flew, because I think once you actually define who you are and what you're trying to do, other opportunities open up. But I think it's very important to stay true to your ethos and to what the brands or the company stands for. And that's something I'm really proud of, that we have almost 4 siblings in the family. They're joined at the hip by the same DNA, but they're all individuals. They're all different expressions of what we like to say, the Irish terroir.
All right, very good. So Tobias wishes you all the best of success and to make a tasty whiskey. He's very curious about it, so a dream never dies. All right, very good. So maybe one of my last questions is now, is the Irish market already filled, just too crowded now with all these new brands, with all these new distilleries, with all these new expressions coming out of Ireland? Will you be able to survive with all those competitors?
I think there's a differentiation. The Irish market is hugely important to us, because that's where it defines who we are and where we come from. And it's logical that we want to see success in the Irish market. I think there are a lot of brands in the whiskey world, but there's probably even more in the gin. And I think each product needs to stand on its own feet. That's why I always like to say we produce world-class spirits that happen to be Irish. And I think that's an important distinction, because if a product doesn't actually stand on its own feet in terms of quality and in terms of taste, provenance doesn't really matter. But if the product is good, certainly being Irish is an accolade. It's the cherry on the cake as such, So I suppose what I'm trying to say is that, there's a lot of products out there that are, let's be kind, marketing driven. There are others which are, product driven. I like to see our products as, product quality driven. So really the labeling, the whole packaging, the whole visual identity is more of an expression of what the product is. And I think that's what consumers are looking for around the world. It is a tough place out there. There's no doubt about it. We've never been complacent, even even when we're successful. Everything needs to be worked at. But my vision is to really bring our brands to the four corners of the world, to allow people the opportunity to taste them.
Okay.
And again, hopefully to judge them on an international basis rather than just being from Ireland.
All right, very good. Now, I really do like your logo here, your labels. Like the design, it has a great flow to it. Very, very, very well done. And I expect interesting new products from you in the future. All right, we've been online now for 45 minutes. I'd like to wrap this up if I may. Any last words here? I'd like to say thank you to all my people who have been watching this on YouTube as well as Facebook. I'm so sorry at the beginning for the internet difficulties, but we've managed now to get a good connection, and that's very great. Very, very great. Patrick, last words are yours.
No, I'd just like to thank you, Jason, for the opportunity to come on and to share our story with your listeners. Und ich möchte auch mal sagen auf Deutsch, vielen Dank für die Zuhörer aus Deutschland. Und ich komme bald hoffentlich nach Deutschland wieder.
Excellent, excellent. The translation was, thank you for all the people who are watching, and hopefully I'll be able to come back to Germany very, very soon. All right, Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American here over in Germany, together with
Patrick Shelley
from Currach Irish Single Malt Whiskey. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jason.